Okay, it's late October, and I'm going to make a base for a tablet type marble tombstone. And I thought I was all done making bases for the year, but there's one more over there that I know of, I absolutely know of, because it's out of the ground. I cleaned it up and it's sitting over there. But anyhow, kind of a late find. It was up against a tree, and it was protected by a hornet's nest. And I eradicated the hornets and got the tombstone away from the tree, and it needs a base. So people have asked, like, how do I make bases? So I'm going to make this video to describe how I make bases. So 60 pound bag of concrete, and I'm going to make this in my shed because it's supposed to get down below freezing tonight, and the shed won't get that cold. So I'm going to make it in here and let it sit here for a couple days. So I already dumped one bag in here, and I got a bucket of water, and so I'm going to mix this up and then put it in this form I got. The form is about 13 inches, and the inside diameter is 25, but the insert I got needs to be 13. So the actual size of the tablet is 12.5 by 2.5. So this is 2 3/4. I'd probably like that to be 3 inches, but this will work okay. So the tablet is 2.5 by 12. So this is 2 3/4 by 13. And my opening here is 23. I just put a couple boards here as spacers because I don't need the concrete to be that big. So I got like 5 inches there, about 5 inches there, and about 5 there, and about 5 there. So I'll make this symmetrical around when I get the concrete in here. So this is made out of wood. There's a screw here, a screw here. That's to help me, something for me to grab a hold of and pull that out, because I pull this out when it's still wet, and we'll get to that in a little bit here. So I'm gonna mix up some concrete. I won't video me dumping the water in there and mixing it, or will I? Let's see if I can find somewhere to put my camera. Okay, let's dump a little water. I'm going to need more water than that, but I don't. Dump a little bit more water. I think I might use too much water in there. You don't have to do this. I'm going to put a scoop of Portland cement . So the last couple bags of concrete I got from Menards, I think it was a little bit weak, and so to make concrete, you have Portland cement, then you have aggregate, sand, and gravel, and so this is just pure Portland cement. The glue, I'm adding just a little bit more, because if I was mixing something up with 10 bags of concrete, if one bag is a little bit weak on the Portland cement, and I'm only using one bag for a project, it could be a little messed up and crack. The last couple of bags of concrete I've gotten from Menards, I think, have been weak because I've had one of these bases crack. That typically doesn't happen. So I had to All right. This is a little runny. It's just a little bit more runny than what I like it, but it's gonna do. So I'm making this perfectly 5 inches from this side, and this side's like 1/8 of an inch, 5 1/8. It's exactly 5 here and 5 there. That just happened to be an accident. I try to leave at least 4 inches around. I call that a mow strip, so the mowers can come up and protects the tombstone from the weed eaters and the mowers a little bit. So I dump this in there gently. I dump a little bit in the front, a little bit in the back. That's 1 bag of concrete. I'm about 1 inch from the top. So if 1 bag tells me it filled up about 3 inches, I'm going to mix up about another 1/3 of a bag, and so I can top that off. So I put another 1/2 scoop of Portland cement in there. So once again, the Portland cement is just the glue. You can buy those at your like Home Depots and Menards. So I'm also, as I'm getting toward the top, the aggregate has like bigger chunks of gravel in it, which is okay. I can smooth that out. But sometimes if I am going to be making a lot of these, what I'll do, I'll fill all these up just about like this. I'll do like 4 or 5 at a time. Today I'm only making 1. And then the last batch of concrete, what I'll do, I'll mix about 1/3 of it with mortar mix. So I got 3 things going on here. I got concrete mix, bags of concrete, just add water. I got Portland cement, which is just the glue, which if you're going to use that, you need to mix sand and aggregate with it. And mortar mix, just add water. So this is basically sand and Portland cement. So now what I'm going to do is add a little bit of this to it. So if I was making like 5 of these, what I would do, I'd make the last bag, like 1 bag of the concrete, and then maybe about, so that'd be like 60 pounds of concrete and about maybe like 20 pounds of the mortar mix. So they come in 80-pound bags. This one here does. Now the reason why I'm doing that is because this has a lot more fines in it. And when I finish off the top, it'll be a smoother, better finish. I won't have to deal with as many rocks toward the top. And there'll still be some rocks in there, but if you're not good at finishing concrete, this will help you cheat. Now, this will harden differently a little bit, and some people will probably comment saying that you shouldn't do this or whatever, but I don't care. It works for me. So I'm just using the rest of what I got. So in the description, I'll tell you exactly how I did this. I'm not saying that this is the right way or the only way, and I'm not saying it's the wrong way. Some people say it's the wrong way. What I'm telling you is that I'm not a mason person, but I've been doing stuff like this, fixing like brick walls and foundations and stuff. I've done stuff as far back as like the 1990s, so over 30 years ago. And the fixes that I've done 30 years ago are still fine. They haven't cracked and fallen down. So I think I kind of know, I know what I'm doing. I don't know if other people know what I'm doing. So I gotta be careful not to mix too much water in this batch because I don't want to be making extra. Here's some tools I got. I'm going to finish it. So I'm just going to use a trowel. And I have 2 trowels. If I was doing something bigger, I'd use this one. You can see this one here. This one here is smaller, so I'm going to use that one. And then I'm going to use an edger. Now I have this edger here, which is a nice one. It's the thing I don't like about this one though, it's nice, but it's okay for, it's tapered and it's good for doing like long spots. But this one here is smaller, and when I get to the corners, I want those corners to be nice and crisp in there. If you can see where am I pointing at. Anyhow, so I'm gonna use this edger. It has like a sharp kind of stops right here at the end. I'm gonna use this one. And last time I used this, I didn't clean it very well. It's always nice to clean these while they're still wet. So I'm gonna take a wire brush and knock off the roughness here. When John Deere made the plow, he saw his mother polishing the sewing needles so they were nice and shiny and smooth, and the needles glided right through the material as she was sewing. John Deere had the same idea. If I polished the plow, it would go right through the dirt nice and easy. That's how he made his plow special here in the Midwest. So I lived half a mile from where John Deere tested his plow when he made his plow. Grain Detour, Illinois. I lived, that's where I lived. And I don't live there now, but I live close. So anyhow, I'm going to start messing with that and make it smooth and pretty. And here's my trowel. Here's my edger. So I got that. It's pretty wet. So what I'm going to do, I kind of just smoothed it off a little bit. This is not rocket science. It isn't like a public sidewalk, or it's not something a lot of people are going to see. Well, they're going to see it, but it's not a big area. So I'm going to leave it. This is typical. So I'm going to leave it for a while, let it set up a little bit, and I'll come back in a half hour or so, and it will start to be stiffening up a little bit. And then I'll run the edger again and smooth it some more. And then depending on how set up it is, I'll come back another half hour or 20 minutes until it's somewhat kind of stiff. And then probably either half hour, 45 minutes, I'll pull that center thing out before it's totally hardened up. So in the meantime, I'll rinse off my tools in this bucket of water. Bucket of water here. Splash that around. If I just leave them in there. It's always nice to have, if you're going to do like 5 of these or more, it's nice to have a helper. Because as one person is like getting these, doing this part over here, another person could be mixing up concrete and just move along. And then the other person could be like rinsing off the tools. So I got to rinse that shovel off. And I got to take that extra concrete. I have an alley here that's gravel. I'll fill that up with water or rinse it out with water and then just dump it out in the alley and kind of like rake it around in the gravel. And it becomes part of the alley. So as you do these, you get better at it and everything. So right now I'm dealing with weather issues with it being colder. I'm used to things being hotter and drier, and I'm usually out in the sun. So if this was out in the sun, if it was a little bit more windy, it would start setting up pretty quick. If I was making 4 or 5 of these, I wouldn't be taking a break at all. Because by the time I'd have the first one set up, I'd work my way down, and then I'd circle back to the first one, and then start to finish it off, and then work my way down, and then go back to the first one, pull the center thing out, make sure everything's good. Maybe take a paintbrush or something light, kind of go over it, put a little bit of a texture on there. Also hide the blemishes, and then just keep working my way down. But just by doing one, I'll have to sit and wait for this one, take a little break. So we'll be back in a little bit. Okay, it's been like about 45 minutes or so, and hope I didn't wait too long. So I'm going to, this stray cat, let's see if you can, you can't see her. Neighbor stray cat coming home to visit me. We feed her. I feel bad for her. I made a straw out of a tote, put a hole in it, put straw in there so she has some shelter, but we already have 4 animals in the house. Anyhow, I'm going to try to do some work on this, and not exactly sure how ready everything is, but we'll see in a second. It's still pretty wet. It's about as wet right now as what it typically would be if I first poured it. So it's been like 45 minutes. I think it's like that because of it's cold and I don't have it in the sun, so it's taking a while. So what I'm going to work on this, the wooden block in the middle, I'm going to pull that up just a little bit. So I'm kind of like just wiggling it back and down to kind of loosen it up. So I pulled it up about, you can see about an inch or so. I'm going to leave it like that for a while. So it's still pretty wet. So I'm going to go back in the house and come back in about half hour or 45 minutes. Typically, that would be ready to pop that out and finish the edging, and maybe even, like I said, take a paintbrush and slowly like go back and forth. And so you see those imperfections there, the paintbrush kind of basically just smooths that out, and it looks pretty good. So yeah, like I said, the temperature is about 50 degrees out, and I'm doing it in here because I'll close these doors tonight. It won't get to freezing in here. It'll stay probably 45 degrees in here. The shed's insulated, so it doesn't doesn't get as cold in here unless it's cold for a couple days. So then I'll leave this set for a couple days, make sure it's ready to go. And then this weekend I'll go over and put it in place. So we'll have another update in just a little bit. Okay, it's like another 45 minutes. So it's been about an hour and a half since I put that concrete in there. And if it was in the sun, 70 degrees, I'd probably be done by now. But I'm in my shed, and it's like 55 degrees or 50 degrees. And the only reason I'm doing that is because this is there's one more stone over in the cemetery that needs to be completed, and I don't want to leave it for the whole winter. So this is going to get the attention. So if I go any farther, like I got that centerpiece in there, I have an assortment of different sizes that I use. Basically just like this here. You can use scrap wood, this is some plywood, you use 2x4s. I got all different sizes. It's not really rocket science. So depending on how thick it is why I got a variety of things. But typically they're 2 inches wide, the tablets, the tombstones. So most of these are 2.5 inches thick. And the trick I use so if you're going to make several of these, instead of making a custom one for each one, which I kind of do, the widths are the same, like 2.5 inches. So what I'll do is, so let's say this is 12 inches. If I need it to be 12.5 or whatever, I got little pieces of wood, and I just screw them on the ends like this. And then depending on, I just keep adding to them to make the lengths I want. So either 1/2 inch, or I also have so this one here. So I could use a 2x4, just made it like this. So you don't need to make a whole bunch of these. You can make, if you're going to be making 4 of these bases, you'd need 4 of these total. But then depending on how wide the tombstone is, you can use these and like screw them on the ends to adjust them. So basically you only need, a couple of these, or 3 or 4, however many you're going to be making at a time. I kind of didn't come up with that idea till later. And so I got probably about 8 of these different lengths. And then I came up with the idea later of just adding to the ends how I need it. And then I have a variety of, so these forms. So if I have one I want it to be a little wider, I could just pop this out and then make it. And then, this would be a certain size. And the other thing I do, like I did for that one, if I want this to be shorter, I just put a block of wood in here to make it smaller, to use less concrete. So it's not that the concrete's so expensive or anything. It's just that if I can make these a little bit lighter, because I make this here, so that one down there, so I used one 60-pound bag plus another third of a bag, so that's like 80 pounds of concrete. So I needed, when I take that to the cemetery, I got to lift it up and lug it around. And being 80 pounds, I don't want to be dropping it because it will break. I've only had one of these break, and actually the one that this is replacing is the one that broke. And then I got some smaller ones. So because I've made like 40 or 50 of those this summer, I have quite the variety. If you're only going to be making a couple, obviously you don't need all this stuff. And you can find scrap wood from about anybody. You know, people have scrap 2x4s. And ideally, if I was going to make these on site, I'd probably make them thicker, like use 2x6s. But because I lug them around, they're too heavy to lift. So, like I said, that's going to be 80 pounds. I'm getting older. I don't want to be hurting myself. So, that's that. All right, so I'm going to go check it out here. Just throw my tools in the water so they're already cleaned off. So, just because I've done this enough, I know it's safe to take that out now. I got that opening now. And this isn't quite ready to do this, but I kind of want to be done. So, I'm just going to take the brush and kind of like lightly brush it. Okay, so you can see the brush marks. It's I might doctor that up just a little bit. So anyhow, I'm just going to leave it like this. If this was summertime, if I was doing this earlier in the day, I'd come out like in another hour or two and actually take the forms off. And then if it was summertime, I'd throw a piece of plastic over it overnight, try to keep it from drying out so fast. So in the summer, I'm worried about drying up too fast. In the winter or cold air, I can't get it to dry up fast enough. So anyhow, that's what it looks like. And in 2 days, I'll take it over to the cemetery and set it up, and we'll be back in business. So I took that out, and I'll take that out and hose it all off, clean off the wet concrete. You don't want the concrete to harden on there. The other thing I said that this was summertime, I'd pop these forms off in an hour or two, and then let it finish curing. One of the reasons why I do that, I take it off, and then the concrete is still a little bit wet, and then I can hose those off, and then I can reuse it without any concrete hardening up on there. And so I would keep reusing these over and over, like here. And so by rinsing them off when the concrete's still a little bit wet, they come clean pretty good. Otherwise, it gets hard and crusty and kind of like that a little bit, but this isn't bad. So, thought I'd add that part in. So, I'll take the garden hose and rinse that off so I can reuse it. And some people use styrofoam for the insides, but this works fine for me, and I kind of got a system down. So, alright, that's all. It is tomorrow, the next day. So, I covered that with plastic because it got down about 28 degrees outside, but I think it stayed relatively well. I have a thermometer in here. It says it's 52 degrees inside here, so I don't think it dropped more than lower than 50 in here over the night. So I'm gonna take the forms off. Sun's a little bit of sunny. So, looks pretty good. Pretty green. So, I take the forms off so I can get a little bit of air to it. So I won't touch this till Sunday, so I poured it on Thursday. And then, like, typically I can mess with them the very next day. But I'm going to leave this set for a couple days. It should start turning white. It's not turning white yet. So I'll give it 72 hours, should be good. And then I'll take it over to the cemetery and we'll continue the video over there as I'm setting it up. And I'll also show how I mix up the lime and the sand to put the tombstone in the slot and how I do that. Alright, that's all. It is 2 days later. Yeah, I started this on Thursday, and today's Sunday, so I'm losing track of time. So I previously had dug that out, and I previously had a base made for it, but the base broke. I didn't leave it sit long enough, and when I hauled it over here, it cracked in the back of my truck. And I had 4 I brought over, and one of them cracked, and it was this one. So I made this other one. Made it a little bit bigger, made it a little bit wider, be more sturdy. So that's been sitting in my shed since Thursday, curing and getting hardened up and ready to be put in the ground. So I had to dig the hole a little bit bigger. I previously put some road rock, limestone with the fines in it, and I tamped it down. And the old base is actually sitting over there on that chunk of concrete, which is interesting because there's something that used to be sitting on top of that chunk of concrete and it's gone, and there's another one over there that's gone. But anyhow, it's a mystery for another day. So anyhow, I took it over there temporarily. So I took that out, and there's the headstone. So Floid Rave is his name. It's hard to see, but died 2 years, 8 months, 4 days. Died in 1877. So just 2 years old. His family migrated west to Iowa, and then I believe his father and mother separated and divorced. She ended up in Los Angeles, and dad ended up in Fond du Lac, I think I said that right, Wisconsin. I would just say Wisconsin. So anyhow, he's the only one left behind, but the mother's maiden name matches some names around here, and I think they're still relatives, so distant cousins of him around here. But anyhow, his tombstone was leaning up against that tree over there, which was surrounded by a bunch of brush that I cut out, and there was a hornet's nest inside the tree that I got rid of, and I filled that in with actually I'd stuck some mortar in there, filled in the hole. But anyhow, so I'm going to take some pea gravel and dump in there and raise that up a little bit, and I want the backside to be about 1 inch higher than the ground, so we'll do that now. I got a post level, and so it's for post holes, or 4x4 post. But what I do, I use it, I lay it down, and I use the, put it like this, and it will level, get the bubble center. think it's about 80 pounds at least. And 30 years ago, that would have been a piece of cake. But I'm old. It's heavy now. Anything bigger than that, too much bigger, I'd either need 2 people or need to like pour it here and not make it at home and bring it. Okay, so it's level and it's aligned with these tombstones here. Now, some of these tombstones are leaning and out of whack. I did stretch a string down here the other day, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it right now, and I think it's pretty well straight. So when I get this tombstone put in there, I can eyeball it a little bit better, and I can nudge it like a half an inch or so, but I want to get it as straight as I can while it's before I do any work to it. So what I'll do now, I'm going to put the sod around there and get that in place. That way when I'm messing with the tombstone, it doesn't get knocked out of whack. So I'll do that next, and then we'll continue in a few minutes. Okay, I got the dirt put back around there, and so that slat goes all the way through, and I do that so if water gets in between the tombstone and the slot, it will drain out. I typically use pea gravel for that, so it drains better. And when I fill that back in, I mentioned I had road rock in there with fines, so limestone, and today I'm using pea gravel. I usually like to use the road rock. The pea gravel is okay, and I get both for free. And today it was more convenient to grab the pea gravel than the road rock, and I don't think it's going to move anywhere. And so the reason why I put rock and gravel under there is because if this does start to shift and move and start leaning in the future, somebody else can come along and easily dig that up and use a breaking bar, put it underneath there and pry it up a little bit, and just shove a little more gravel, pea gravel or gravel under there, and level it up again, and probably do it in like 20 minutes. If I were to start sticking like chunks of concrete under there or do a bunch of crazy stuff, it'd be harder to fix it in the future. So this might sink a little more quicker, but it'd be 10 times easier to fix in the future. It's my opinion. So anyhow, I'm gonna put gravel in that slot, bring that up to about 1 inch from the top, because the inscription here is only about 2.5 inches. So I don't want to cover the inscription, so I only want about this much below to fit in that slot. So I have a bucket of pea gravel, and I will just add a little more, and I will maybe add just a little bit more. So I'm going to shut the camera off in a second, so I'll level that out, and I'll take a 2x4 and tamp that down a little bit so it doesn't settle. And I'll wet this too and tamp it down so it's nice and packed. And then I'll set the tombstone in there, do a dry fit, and then we'll mortar it in. I'll jump back on the video and show you how I do that. Okay, got this wet it down. I need to pack that down still. But the other thing I like to do is put a little mason sand, or people don't be mad at me for doing this, but I sprinkle a little bit of dirt on there and I rubbed it around, kind of made like a muddy looking watery, because I went to double check how his name was spelled. So I've never seen Floid spelled Floid, and that's what the cemetery record said, so that's kind of what I went with. But the other thing, the cemetery record says it had a letter P, it said it was P Floid, and now that I've done this, it definitely says F Floyd. So I'm glad I did this. And the other thing I couldn't read was at the bottom, it says I am an angel now. So I couldn't read that either. So now I can read it. So I'll clean this off now. And so I want the headstone, the bottom wet anyhow when I put this in here, so the mortar will adhere to it better. And we'll get to that in a few minutes. Okay, I'm doing a dry fit here. So it's not mortared in, I got it just sitting in there. And I wanted to make sure the inscription wasn't covered, and it's not. So I think it's just about good. I'll also be putting about a half inch of mortar will be at the bottom of the stone too. So to raise up even just a little bit more. So you can see I cleaned it off. You can't hardly read that no more. That's an F. I thought it was a P until today. So all right, let's get the mortar going. I'll set the camera up and show how you do that. And I'm gonna try to do this one hand. There's no good spot to set my camera up. Plus, a gust of wind come up every once in a while. And so I usually have a dish pan that I mix that up in. But I'm gonna use this bucket because I didn't make my dish pan. And I'm gonna start out by just putting a little bit of water in this bucket. So we'll just do it from a dangerously high here. So you don't want to put too much water in there because you don't want it. It's easier to add a little bit more water than it is to add more of the mortar mix. So in this bucket, so what I do, I have a lid that seals on there. I mix it at home, and it's like 2.5 parts of mason sand, move out of the way, and 1 part hydrated lime mortar. So there's a hydraulic lime mortar, and then there's hydrated. I did research to see what you're supposed to use. Apparently you can use both, and in this area supposedly you use hydrated, and I can buy that at my local lumber yard. So it comes like in 80-pound bags. And then I buy mason sand. I can get sand for free, but I want the sand to be as clean and free as dirt as possible. So I buy mason sand. It's like $7 a 50-pound bag. So it's not that much. It goes a long way because you're not like building a brick wall. You're just mortaring in the thing here. So you see I wetted that down. It's dry already. So I'll wet that down some more. And the tombstone is still wet. So you want to wet the concrete before you mortar it, because the concrete will suck the water out of the mortar mix, and you don't want that to happen. So you want to get the concrete wet so it doesn't suck up the water. And beans that's only a couple days old, it's still green a little bit inside, so it's not going to suck up as much water as typical. So I'm going to be mortaring in like 4 of these today. I got 4 others that I got kind of sitting there waiting to be mortared in. So if I make extra, it's not that I'm being wasteful, it's just that I'm working ahead. It's also good to mix this ahead of time, like maybe a half an hour, kind of let it set, and supposedly the lime will absorb the water even more. That's what I heard. I don't usually do that. I usually just mix it and put it in place and get going with it. So anyhow, let's see what we can do here. I will put the bucket down here because it's kind of windy and I don't want this to blow around on my face. So I got this old Cool Whip bowl, I guess, and put a couple of bowls. I got this here, my wife calls it a spatula. It's a trowel, and get that stirred around. So I put a lot more water in there than what I should have. So, but the thing is, like I said, I'm going to be using quite a bit. See how that blows away? So I'm working upwind, and then I'm also got this on the ground so I don't get face full of this stuff. I do got safety glasses on so it doesn't hit my eyes. So another big scoop might do it. Wait till the wind blows it away. If I get to the point where I need a little more water, what I'll do, I'll use my sprayer and just spray a little bit of water on it. That way I know I'm not accidentally going to overdo it. So this is probably about right. So what I do to test it, I kind of like see if I can like, work with it a little bit. And so like I'll put it up against the side and I'll see if I can smooth it out and see if it kind of like sticks coming up. So see how that kind of sticks? That tells me that it's going to be able to be worked with. And so I'll just keep stirring that around. So I'll continue here in a minute over at the Tombstone. So I put a level, there I am. I got a level strapped to it, so as I'm putting it in there I can make sure it's straight. Perfect. So I got a tuck pointing tool here. I think this is 3/8 or a quarter. Probably says on it somewhere. We'll just call it 3/8. Looks more than a quarter. Put a little bit on the end. Just scrape it down in there. I grabbed the camera so you can see better. So you can see I got the mortar in there, and I'll take the tool and I'll work it at about a, I don't know, 45-degree angle. If I had extra, I just kind of scrape it off. Looks pretty good. The backside got pretty good already. And I think that's good. Look at my bubbles. So if that fit in there a little more sloppy, what I would have done is get some wood and brace it up so it doesn't move. But I gotta go mortar that one in over there, and then there's one way over there, and there's one over here, so I got 3 more to go. What I'll do, I'll come back before probably like a half hour, and I'll double check see if that's level still, and then I'll just, this isn't going to go anywhere. And yeah, so the lime mortar is that's going to be the weak point, and then as that concrete freezes and thaws, it won't crunch that marble and make it weak and crumble. So if you put the marble right straight in the concrete, pour the concrete around there, as that concrete freezes and thaws, it just squeeze that marble and crumble it up, and if it gets bumped into it, it'll snap off easy. And then you have that block of concrete with the marble in there, and then you gotta take a grinder or make a new base, which I've done for others over there. And I gotta borrow a generator, bring it over, and bring my angle grinder, and just make a lot more work. So hopefully if this gets bumped into or broke or something fails, it'll be that joint I put in there, that's where it will fail. So that's the plan. So that's what I learned. It's supposed to be best practice. And if I'm not doing it perfectly like people think I should be, well, shame on me. I'll tell you what though, it's 100 times better now than what it was when it was like laying in the dirt over there by that tree over there. I guess it'd help if I point it. So anyhow, so Floid, Rave, you're all set, buddy. Nobody forgot about you. A lot of people forgot about you, but I didn't forget about you. I didn't know you existed till a week ago, but you're good now. Alright, so that wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's quite long, but it kind of takes you through the steps of the beginning to finish. The only thing I didn't show is when I got the headstone off of the tree, I put it on some 4x4s like that, and I cleaned it with D2. First I scraped the dirt off with a plastic putty knife, and then I cleaned it with just water, and then I cleaned it with D2, and then it's been sitting here for like a week. So the D2 will continue to work. And actually it didn't have too much lichen in there, so it'll keep the lichen, the green stuff, from growing. And when I come back, a couple weeks or a month or in the spring, that should look nice and bright and just as pretty as can be. So alright, this time I'm leaving for sure. So thanks for watching.